Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be looking back at 2019 and talking about basically our review and ratings for the 2019 Run Disney events. Now, this is not going to include talking about Paris because I haven't done that race and that's kind of its own entity. We're just going to be talking about the Walt Disney World races, Marathon Weekend, Princess Weekend, Rival Run Weekend, and Wine and Dine. I ran at least one race in all of these. In fact, I ran the challenge for Princess, Rival Run, and Wine and Dine. Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend, I only ran the half in. But we're going to kind of break this down into a couple different categories. And then after we talk about each of the races, we're going to go ahead and rank them from basically best to worst. And then we're going to have an overall ranking of basically what I thought the best weekend of the year was. So the categories we're going to be looking at is the courses, the resorts that we stayed at, the merchandise, the themes, and of course the medals, which is kind of closely associated with the themes. Now for this breakdown, I did not run every race of every weekend, so the 5Ks are excluded because I didn't run any of those. Not really going to talk about them except for one small instance. And then it's mostly going to focus on the experiences I had with races I ran or races in some cases that I also spectated. We're going to start with Marathon Weekend, Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend. This is a good race weekend. This was a cool race weekend because it was my first experience with Marathon Weekend. I had not done any races in the past relating to this weekend, and I really enjoyed it. I ran the half marathon, and then I also spectated the 10K because Katie ran the 10K. The half marathon was the Epcot to Magic Kingdom to Epcot course. It's like their high capacity course for the busier race weekends. This course is pretty standard for what they do for this weekend in Princess. A lot of time spent on World Drive, honestly. Time spent running through the Magic Kingdom parking lot. But you do get to run through the castle, which I think is really the biggest draw to this course, to be honest. Everything else you can either typically get in another race weekend or isn't that impressive. And like I said, I also spectated the 10K, so I'm gonna kind of talk about my thoughts on that. Overall, I think spectating these races can be kind of difficult, especially for the shorter races where you don't have time to kind of bounce around from park to park or location to location. So I actually thought the spectating for this race was pretty meh. Typically at the start and finish line, they like to have this problem of not having enough bleachers or not having a long enough area to spectate, even though they pretty easily could create like walking paths out further into the course. For instance, for the 10K start, there was like maybe 100 feet of area where non like cheer squad people could go, and there was like, I don't know, probably 20 people back kind of trying to crowd and see their runners, which is unfortunate because people wouldn't really move or they would be up there too early to see their runners, which is fine. You can be up there, but if you're trying to just see one corral of runners at a certain time, you may not be able to get up to see them start. So that kind of stinks, and I think that this is a problem that needs to be addressed because I've ran into it in more than one case this year, which we'll talk about later. Next, I'm going to talk about the resort we stayed at. We stayed at Pop Century Resort. It's a value resort, so typically you get a pretty good price for your value. It's on property, so you can also take advantage of the race transportation, which I think is usually really good. I'll tell you right now, this is one of my favorite resorts to stay at for race weekend. So it is ranked pretty high. It's also recently refurbished, and while it wasn't open at the time of Walt Disney World weekend, you can now take advantage of the Skyliner to get to Epcot and Hollywood. So definitely has some great advantages, especially for being in that value range of price. Now in terms of merchandise, I actually did not spend a lot of time at the Expo this year. Overall, I thought the merch was decent. It's kind of your standard Fab Five merch, so I didn't think there was anything that was like kind of that out of the ordinary or crazy, other than they did have Oswald as the 5K theme, which was new. So you did get some Oswald merchandise, which was pretty cool. And then that leads right into themes. Again, nothing crazy new other than the Oswald 5K. It was your pretty basic Fab 5. So Oswald for the 5K, you had Donald for the half marathon, Minnie for the 10K, and then Mickey for the marathon. And then you also had the Goofy Challenge and Dopey Challenge. Pretty standard theming for this race weekend, which I think is still cool. I like the classic character themes for this weekend. The medals, kind of same thoughts as with the theme. The medals are pretty simple. I have the Donald and Katie has the Minnie. And I really like them. I think they're simple but clean. They're not overly complex. There's not anything crazy. But they're just like good stylish medals. Very like classic medals. And I really enjoy them. They were some of my favorite from this year, honestly. And overall, for Marathon Weekend, again, this was my first weekend. I really like this weekend. I think this weekend is great both for people who may be like higher caliber runners, having some of the additional races with the marathon, and also fun for just Disney fans alike. This is definitely, I think, the most like, I want to say running focused, just having the full marathon there. So I think you just get a little bit more of some competitiveness going on with this weekend. And I think that's really cool. And I really enjoy this weekend. I am looking forward to running my first marathon in it in basically just a week for the 2020 marathon weekend. So moving down the year to February, we're going to be talking about Princess Weekend. This is probably the most popular weekend right now. It typically sells out. It's the 2020 weekend is sold out. For this weekend, I ran the challenge. So the 10K was the standard Epcot Boardwalk course. Nothing particularly new about it, but I do like this course. This course is very interesting. You run about the first 3 miles on the road, and then the next 3 is either in Epcot or around the Boardwalk loop. I think this is a great loop. This is probably the best 10K loop that they have. And then the half marathon course is pretty much the same as the Walt Disney World half marathon course. It's the Epcot to Magic Kingdom to Epcot course. Not really going to go on too much about that because, like I said, it's the same as Marathon Weekend. Now, for this weekend, I did do something a little different. I did not book a room in time to stay on property. So I stayed at the Wyndham Resort that is right there next to Disney Springs. One great thing I will say is that this is the resort that's like closest to the bridge to get to Disney Springs. So you would kind of walk out on the path and walk like 30 feet and you would walk on the bridge and then you'd be over there by where the Void and the toy store is. So it was very quick to get to Disney Springs. I loved that. However, I really didn't enjoy the resort that much. Thought the room was just meh. It was kind of almost dingy. And even a little kind of like humid at most points. And plus their whole parking situation was super weird. I had to walk all the way across the resort to get to my car in the morning, and it's like 2:30 in the morning. Plus I don't really like driving to the races, even though I will admit it was super easy, but that's because I was waking up used to the times that you have to get onto the bus. So I was getting to the races very, very early, which was fine because I would actually like just nap in my car for a little bit until it was time to actually go. The merchandise I thought was fine, kind of your standard princess merch. There was nothing particularly like amazing or standout about it, but if you're there for princesses or Princess Race Weekend merch, there was a lot of it, and there was a pretty good selection. The themes themselves this year were pretty good. We had Mulan for the 10K, which was my favorite theme like of this whole weekend. I thought this was awesome. That was like the theme that's also on the shirt for this weekend. But I really like it. This is my like age placement plaque from the weekend, so super cool. And then the half marathon was Aurora, and the challenge was Jasmine. Jasmine and Mulan were both newer princesses to the Princess Weekend, which I thought was very cool. I like that they're kind of doing this continual switch out of princesses now. It used to kind of just be the 10K was like enchanted 10K theme, but there wasn't really a change to the medal or anything, and now they're doing this continual rotation of new medals with new princesses each year. And I think that's pretty cool for sure. Now, the medals and the art that they chose to go with these themes, I didn't think was particularly spectacular. The Mulan was pretty cool, and the medal was pretty cool. I really liked kind of the design and the texture that was on the medal. The half marathon with the Aurora was kind of weird, and the art with her holding like the tiara up was kind of random. I don't know why or how. And then the Jasmine medal was also super weird because it's her like surfing on the magic carpet. Not really sure how that has to do with running or the movie because I don't think she ever does that. Overall, this weekend didn't really impress me. Again, still like a good weekend. I really like it. Again, one of the more popular weekends. But because it's so popular and it continues to sell out, I don't think they're very incentivized to try anything new or make changes. So it was pretty standard princess weekend. Even I thought a lot of the characters were almost the same from previous years, with the exception of maybe a couple small changes here and there. And now we are going to move on to Star Wars Rival Run. I ran the challenge again for this, so the Rival Run challenge, the 10K, is the Magic Kingdom parking lot to Epcot. This is probably one of the worst courses that they do in like all of RunDisney. It's like 4.5 miles of just like paved highway, and then finally for like the last 2 miles you get into the park. Not the worst 10K course that we have. The worst one is pretty similar to this though, and we'll be getting to that. And then the half marathon is one of my favorite courses for all of RunDisney. This is the Magic Kingdom parking lot to Animal to Hollywood to Epcot. I like this course a lot. You run on that cool back road between Magic Kingdom and Animal, which is kind of like entertaining and a little bit secluded. You get a lot of park time with 3 different parks, which is awesome. And I think you usually get a lot of Animal Kingdom park time. You run all the way through Pandora and then like back out and through Dino Land. And that part's always really entertaining and really cool. Only part that can be kind of slow on this course is running the Animal Kingdom parking lot. You kind of loop through it. And then Osceola is like the major highway that you're stuck on for a while. I think you do like 2.5 miles on this road. And it's like right at like mile 7 or 8. So it's just kind of long and slow. And then you gotta do some like overpass switching and stuff, which isn't fun. Overall, still a really great course. I really enjoy running this one. I think it's super entertaining. There's a lot to look at. As for the resort we stayed at, we had stayed at Coronado Springs. This is a really great resort. I like it for race weekends. I would definitely stay here again. And they have the addition of the tower now, so there's even more availability there. The rooms themselves were also recently renovated, so a very clean, very moderate resort. Kind of my only con, which has a little bit of a pro to it, is the busing situation there. So it's a big resort and they have bus stations kind of throughout the loop of it, and the RunDisney buses do run through the loop. The only problem is if you're on like the last loop, if the bus fills up before it gets to you, it's just gonna pass on by. And we were unfortunate enough to be on that last loop. So we did have a period where I think 2 buses had passed us by waiting to go to the half marathon. But it took us much longer to get to the race than we had expected, just because these buses were full. That kind of stinks, and that's something that you're going to have to consider if you do choose to stay at this resort for a race weekend. The merchandise for this weekend was solid. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to like the merchandise. Again, with the theme change, you got these rivals, which we'll get into in a second. Typically, just because Star Wars isn't as popular as some of the other Disney IPs, and this race weekend is the least popular of all of them, you don't have a problem with like the merch selling out or any of that, which is definitely good if you don't get there the first day right at open. But I do enjoy it. I think they usually have some pretty cool merch available during this weekend. Now, as we alluded to earlier, the theme did change this year. This used to be Star Wars The Dark Side, and then they had Star Wars The Light Side over in Disneyland, but those races went away which made this race weekend feel a little bit lopsided, only having a dark side theme. So they made the change and turned it into a rival theme. So all the races are themed versus different rivals, which I really think was cool. I liked that it added that, to say, balance to the force. But for the 10K, we had Han and Boba Fett, which was a really cool medal. I really liked the gold coloring on it. And then the half, we had Rey and Kylo Ren. And the challenge, we had Luke and Vader, which was a really cool, like, black medal. I really enjoyed this one. One of my favorites from the year for sure. And I guess that also kind of covers talking about the medals as well. Overall, I think this is a great weekend. It has less people, so it may be a good option if you're looking for like a first weekend to go to. It is a little bit more of a niche theme, which is why it has the lower volume of people. But if you're into Star Wars, this is definitely a great race for you. I also love the retheming, and I like that you get to choose your side as part of registration. Now, the only difference is that your bib either has like a light side character or a dark side character. For instance, for the challenge, it had either Luke or Vader on it. But it was a nice little touch to let you kind of pick that, and then you could see at the race who picked what side. And last but certainly not least is the Wine and Dine half marathon weekend. This is a great weekend. This is the most recent weekend. I almost consider this weekend part of like 2020 because it happens in November and all of the other races happen either in the winter or springtime. But we're going to talk about it now. I ran the challenge. We did the 10K, which was the Magic to Epcot. Again, I talked about Star Wars Rival Run Weekend 10K, how this is my least favorite course. With the construction going on at Epcot, this made, I think, this course even worse, honestly. That finish that they did for it was pretty terrible with that big straightaway at the end. Just not as cool as running by Spaceship Earth or any of that. This was another race where I had a terrible experience spectating. I ran the race and then I wanted to watch Katie finish. And the spectating up before the finish line was like maybe 50 feet of area. So I ran into that same scenario where it was like 20 feet back and people were just hanging out up front, like waiting for the racers to finish. Sometimes like way before they were going to finish, which is fine. You can do that. But it stinks if you're trying to come up and watch your finisher and then leave. And then the half, again, was pretty similar to the Rival Run weekend, but not quite as good. For two reasons. One, the finish, as I mentioned before, you miss the Spaceship Earth because you got to go out the backside and do that straight away. Not nearly as cool as running by Spaceship Earth. And two, they cut out some of the Hollywood studio. You used to run down Sunset Boulevard and then out the main road. I forget what it was called. And then you would go around, and this time you would go down Sunset Boulevard, but kind of take a quick turn. It basically cut 200 meters of park time out, so maybe not a huge deal, but you weren't really in this park very long to begin with. It does make you feel a little bit cheated, to be honest. So not quite as good as Rival Run's course, but still one of my favorite courses overall because you get the 3 parks in there. Now for this weekend, we stayed at the Wilderness Lodge Cabins. This is a great option for a race weekend. You get the full kitchen. You get kind of 2 bedrooms because the main area has the pull-out couch and the back room has a full-size bed and a bunk bed. And then you also get like the outside sitting area with the bench and the little porch there, which was super nice to kind of sit out there and stretch. It gave us quite a bit more room than just having like a normal resort room. The only downside is that when you get up in the morning, you do have to take either your car or the internal bus loop up to the front. So we always have our car there, so this is not a problem for us at all. We get in our car, we drive up to the front, and this has probably always been the best busing situation. We've never had to wait more than a few minutes for a bus. I mean like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Most times we just hop on a bus. We've stayed here quite a few times doing the cabins or even tent camping for the race weekends. As for merchandise, the merchandise was cool for what they had. They really seemed to scale back the merchandise. They didn't have as many kind of staple items. I know headbands were one thing they were missing. By the time we got to the expo the second day, a ton of stuff was sold out. They only had one or two variety of pins, and they usually have like maybe 15 or 16 different options. A lot of sizes and certain things were sold out, so it was really slim pickings by the second day, and I really think that kind of stinks. Definitely, I think, the worst merch situation that I've experienced in a while. Now to the themes. The 10K was Frozen themed because Frozen 2 was coming out, so they had to do Frozen theme. It was specifically Sven and Olaf, which is cool, I guess. Overall, I think the most lackluster theme from this race. Now the half theme, though, was one of my favorite themes of the whole weekend, or of the whole year. It was the Patriotic Mickey theme, and then the challenge was the Three Caballeros. So both two really cool themes, really unique themes that I really, really liked. And to go along with this, the medals were really cool for this weekend. You can see them right here behind me. Really awesome. You have that really clean looking Patriotic Mickey with the spinner that turns the apples into the pie. And then the challenge medal just has a lot of stuff going on. You have the Three Caballeros and they spin around. And then you got the little like dangling objects that have all the race distances. Really cool medals. Awesome theming for this weekend overall. I think that this is a great race weekend. You also get the after party, which has its whole slew of benefits from being able to ride rides. They have the special drinks and the special characters all out. Just a really cool race weekend overall. Now that we've talked about all of the different weekends and kind of some of their pros and cons, we're going to go through and rank them based off the things I just talked about. The races and courses overall goes to Star Wars Rival Run. Just really great courses. You get a good amount of park time. 10K, kind of meh, but overall with a great half marathon course, this wins out. Second went to Wine and Dine, and then third was a tie for Walt Disney World and Princess, just because those courses are pretty much the same, if not are exactly the same. Second is the resorts. The best resort that we stayed at for the race weekend this year was the Wilderness Lodge Cabins. Again, we loved having all that additional space, having the outside area. It was a great and beautiful weekend to be outside there, kind of walk around, walk to the back or walk to the front if you needed to go and get anything from either the gift shops there. Really like staying here. We would definitely stay here again for a race weekend. Second, Pop Century. Again, great value, lots of transportation options. Recently renovated, so a whole bunch of great things. This was almost first on my list, but we really did enjoy Wilderness. Third was Coronado, another pretty good option. The busing situation did knock it down though. And then third was the Wyndham. I don't have anything that great to say about it except for the walking to Disney Springs, but there are other resorts there that I think I would choose over this, honestly. As for merchandise, I picked Star Wars as the first option. Again, because they didn't sell out of everything right away, it was awesome to be able to basically get what we want and be almost guaranteed to get what we want, and just they had a really solid selection and a cool new theme. Second would be Wine and Dine, but again, kind of slim picking, so we didn't necessarily get to get everything that we probably would have because of it. Third, Walt Disney World Weekend. Fourth, Princess. Now, best overall theme this year was Wine and Dine Weekend for sure, Patriotic Mickey and the Three Caballeros, which were also themes, and then it was also an anniversary weekend, so we got additional theming and like props for that as well, which was really awesome. I really enjoyed pretty much all of these themes. Again, Frozen was kind of okay. Overall, awesome weekend theme-wise. Second would be Star Wars with the new Rival Run theme. Again, really cool themes. Just barely lost to Wine and Dine. Third would be Walt Disney World Weekend. And then fourth being Princess Weekend, even though I thought Mulan was a great theme for the race. And then the medals. The best medals were the Wine and Dine medals for sure. Awesome medals. I love them so much. Second goes to Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend. These are just clean classic medals. Really enjoyed them. Third is Star Wars Rival Run. And then fourth was Princess Weekend with kind of some odder medals. So with all of these individual rankings, it's probably pretty clear which one was my favorite weekend overall. That was Wine and Dine Weekend. You know, you get the party, great themes, great courses, really awesome weekend. My favorite weekend of 2019. Second actually goes to Walt Disney World weekend. Again, I just love the like kind of higher runner vibe that you get from it compared to the other weekends, even though Star Wars beat it out in more categories. I really like this weekend, and it probably doesn't help it, or I guess does help, that this weekend is going to be coming up in just next week. Third, again, very close to Marathon Weekend, is Star Wars Rival Run Weekend. A really great weekend overall. The theming with the rivals is really cool. I'm really excited for it this year. And then fourth is Princess, because it didn't really do anything new. So that's everything I got for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of this list. Do you think that some of these races or themes should have been switched in order of ranking? What was your favorite race weekend that you did this year? And make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things that YouTube makes you do now to follow along. Thanks, guys.